There's a great line by Dostoevsky in which he writes, "Pain and suffering are inevitable for a great intelligence and a deep heart. For the greatest of men must also suffer great sadness on this earth." And this is essentially the theme of the authentic or true master, the one who does not seek out happiness, but who seeks out struggle. In fact, the true master is the one who is happiest in his very struggle. Nietzsche once joked about this, that someone who is a master is happy amidst circumstances that would lead other people to despair. And granted, it's a romanticization of pain and suffering, which is both true for Nietzsche as well as for much of Russian literature. But what I'd like to do in this short video is talk about the true or authentic master. In fact, Slavoj Žižek has a great line about the authentic master, in which he says, "The authentic master does not worry about who will follow him. Instead, he acts so freely that other people will choose to follow him." And essentially what Žižek is pointing out here is that a true master doesn't worry about what other people will think. Like, a true master acts with such freedom that it creates a sense of aura, if you will, that makes other people attracted to him. You could make the same observation about great leadership. A great leader doesn't aspire to be a leader, and it's precisely the ones we shouldn't trust who make it their entire life's mission to come to power. In fact, Proust has an interesting idea about this. In Search of Lost Time, he lays out what you might call the Proustian theory of the master. Proust writes that a master creates his own posterity. And what he means is that the master creates something very niche, something that isn't widely appreciated. It's not meant to be sold or to be successful. And yet, in so doing, the true master attracts a small but loyal following. And if this loyal following grows over time, then by the time the master is no more, he will not only have generated students and acolytes, but more importantly, he will have created the very taste for which his work was destined to be great. In other words, as Proust puts it, the master creates his own posterity. And one of the most crucial aspects of the master, therefore, is paradoxically that the master couldn't care less about being a master. A master doesn't spend his entire time at home thinking about how someday he will become great. In fact, this is precisely what Nietzsche would have characterized as slave morality, the idealization of the master, sitting at home worrying about how someday the right time will come for you to do what you want to do. Instead, the master wakes up each and every day, happy, or perhaps struggling to do that which he cannot let go of. Consider, for example, Hayao Miyazaki. Hayao Miyazaki, to my mind, is a contemporary version of the authentic master, which isn't to say that he has to be a good person. He's not a role model in that sense, but he is someone who has dedicated himself and his life completely to his art. And he knows that this makes him suffer. He knows that it's terrible to have to make these movies, and yet he has no other way to live. In fact, every single one of Miyazaki's movies has a singular message, which is, you must keep on living. Like, this is the master's message. And you can go back through his movies and see how it's quite consistent, whether it's Princess Mononoke or The Wind Rises. It's, you must continue. Despite failure and suffering and despair, you must go on living. And this is what the master does. The master pursues and relishes repeated failure over and over again. And Giacometti, the modernist sculptor and painter, is a great example of the embrace of failure. When his work became too popular, i.e. when it became associated with the movement of the Surrealists, he actually retreated into his atelier, a tiny room full of plaster, and made miniature sculptures that could fit into a matchbox. And he didn't want to sell these. He didn't care about being successful. He simply wanted to create something that corresponded to his vision. And here we have, if you will, the rewriting of the myth of Sisyphus by Camus, that we must imagine Sisyphus happy. The true master is like Sisyphus, pushing his fateful boulder up that mountain, only to see it roll down again the very next day. And this is happiness for the true or authentic master. The true or authentic master is never trying to sell you a course about how to live. He's not trying to save you. He doesn't have the answers. But he is so committed to his task, he has such singular focus, that in the very freedom that comes with this focus, he can set other people free as well. He encourages them to live a free and dedicated life. And perhaps this, in a time when we have become too afraid, too anxious, too full of apathy to really do or believe in anything anymore, perhaps this is the most important part of the master. That the master shows us that we can live fearlessly with reckless abandon, that life is a precious gift, and that we can dedicate ourselves to something that transcends the everyday. And the funny thing is that the master is secretly quite happy because he is free. He doesn't have to worry about what other people think. As Zizek says, the master could care less about how his work is interpreted. He's simply rigidly locked in. And there's a kind of surplus enjoyment that comes, what Lacan would characterize as the surplus enjoyment of the death drive, of the repetitive motion of doing something which is by definition never complete, never possible. And this is the highest ideal of the master, to do something that by definition is doomed to fail, and to give himself completely to it. And so I'd like to conclude this video by saying that if you'd like to be an authentic master, and perhaps I should say who wouldn't, right? Perhaps this is something that exists itself as an ideal of sorts. It's not about going nuts and losing yourself completely. I don't think that we should idealize pain and suffering altogether. But I think it is about saying that in a world that is increasingly cynical, in which people no longer believe in things that are worth dedicating themselves to, that perhaps the easiest way to be free, the easiest way to live a happy and fulfilled existence is precisely to choose one thing and go for it completely, to dedicate yourself entirely to the struggle. And to my mind, this is the only way to live. And you could have multiple things that you focus on. It doesn't have to be singular, but it's about saying, I have one life, and there's one thing that I really want to do with it. I'm not going to wait for someday to come when the opportunity is there. I'm going to start right now. And whatever that looks like for you, I think you can incorporate aspects of the true master in your life. You can work without worrying about posterity or financial success or status. You can do the thing for the sake of the thing. And that is what paradoxically will make it successful. You will become the master at the exact point that you don't even care about being a master. It simply fades away. That's the authentic master. If you like these videos, please do consider becoming a patron. Thank you.